So, carrying on with our audio fundamentals videos, I want to talk about presets and why you shouldn't use presets, whether that is like a scene that you're recalling, an EQ, reverb setting that you're recalling, and why it's like not a great idea to use those. So it's a nice thought. It's a good thought to think like, oh, I can set something exactly the way that I want it, and it's going to be completely fine. I can use this for the rest of time. It's a nice thought, but sound is a little bit more fluctuating than that. So the problem with that is like, and this happens a lot in like studio work, is there's a lot of presets that come with the effects in the EQs and compressors you're using. So you could go to an EQ and set it to this preset that's called like male lead vocal, if you have like a guy singing for you. But the problem with that is like those are not made with your vocalist in mind. And so on the boards that we're using, you probably don't have that option to do those kind of presets, but you do have the option to set up an EQ, never touch it again, and just assume that that's going to be perfectly fine. And honestly, like the thing is that that's just not really true. So this whole idea of like set it and forget it is kind of a bad philosophy, because sound is just, it's constantly traveling, it's constantly moving. So even the same vocalist week to week, you will find yourself making adjustments to their EQ if you want the sound to be like as good as it possibly can. So the main things I'm talking about for this are, like already I've said, EQ, compression, and then reverb and delay effects and stuff like that as well. Basically, it's just you don't want to assume that because you set something one way and it worked one weekend, that it's going to work every single weekend. Because that's just, unfortunately, like I said, that's not how it is. It's always traveling, it's always moving, so things are different. So get the EQ and compression to where you like it. Figure out kind of like the sweet spot, so to speak, of where you like it for a particular vocalist, or a particular instrument. But just be ready to make adjustments to that. And with the reverb and delay as well, like be ready to make adjustments to how much reverb you're using, how much delay you're using, the actual settings on the reverb and delay. Like be ready to adjust those things, because you can't assume that they're always just going to be the same. So the biggest thing on this though, and like what will probably affect you the most for presets, is you can't assume that your levels will stay the same every week. So there's not like a right or wrong place to put a fader every time. So moving your fader up to a certain level, and we're gonna look at this when we look at the board too. Like putting your fader at a certain level doesn't mean that you're gonna get that same exact outcome every week. So you can't just, like with this whole thing, I said set it and forget it earlier. So this whole idea of like, I'm gonna move the fader right here and it's gonna stay there forever, for till the end of time, because that's where I liked it at this moment. Well, like oftentimes you'll find, and really you should find, that from the beginning of a song to the end of the song, really most of those faders should not be in exactly the same position, because you're probably going to be wanting to push a certain instrument at one point in the song, pull back a certain instrument at one point in the song. So setting something to a certain level may be great for the moment, may be great for the song, doesn't mean it's going to be great every weekend. So you can't just rely on saying, I'm going to put my keys right here. My keys are going to live at negative 15 dB every weekend, because it's going to fluctuate. So I guess the point of this whole video is just to say, be ready for fluctuation, be ready for change, and always kind of be on the ball with like, do I need to make an adjustment to something? And we're going to talk about mixing philosophy at some point. There's going to be a whole set of videos about like, how do we mix? Like there'll be technical side of like, how do I mix this certain instrument, but then there will also be the practical side, I guess, of what way do I want to mix this? Like, how do I actually want this to sound to fit in with the way that Fresh Life wants their worship to sound, or their message, their videos to sound. So we'll get into that more later, and that will help with, as far as understanding like when to adjust things and why to adjust things. But just know that the idea of set it and forget it is something that you should not be using. That's basically the whole point of saying all of this, is just that you're going to want to be ready to make those changes when they're needed. So.